This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reef Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
It was tough coming into after the first period without the lead. I thought we did a lot of good things, and then I don't know. It was one of those that just looked like whoever was going to score first was going to win, and that's pretty much how it ended. And a little unfortunate for us, especially because we've been playing pretty well and unfortunately losing. And tonight I thought we took a step back. Honestly, it was a little disappointing, especially the desperation level we should have after dropping 3 straight, and thought it was a winnable game, and turned out it wasn't.
I feel like John Cooper was a little annoyed with his team's...
Or disappointed, which is the word that he used.
The outcome last night in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
Not getting the bounces either, partner.
That's part of it.
I
think I said at the start of the third period, because the Lightning didn't have a good second period, after they had a great start. They had a great start. First 15 minutes of that game, they were all over the Maple Leafs. And it was kind of a wash, rinse, repeat a little bit here, where they generated chances, didn't get rewarded, especially at the start of that Pittsburgh game. And I thought the first goal against, maybe for the first time during the losing streak, really adversely affected their game. Which is funny because Dan Hino joined me during the intermission, and he was basically saying, we're a veteran group, which is one reason why we can understand that, you don't change the process. You keep doing what you're doing. Eventually you're going to get rewarded. That can be harder for a younger team. I agree with that. That's true. But hockey players are human beings. And this is like getting pounded in the head again and again and again and again. And I think it affected them. I think they lost, like when Coop talked about their desperation level, they had plenty of desperation in the first 15 minutes. The Leafs were a mess. I mean, they were giving up chances left and right. And, that goal that Morgan Riley scored that frankly, they got 2 incredibly lucky breaks on it to have that goal go in. And it changed the complexion of the game. And so, the Lightning tried to push back in the third, but the reality, Greg, is that the number of chances they generated in the first, I'll say 15 minutes of the game, that number was higher than what they generated the whole rest of the game. They had a couple looks in the third period, but I don't think it was a matter of will. I think that they wanted to play with desperation. I think it was the cumulative effect of the losing and the not getting any breaks, running into goalies that are making saves blindfolded, pulling saves out of their back pocket they have no business making, bad luck, puck swept off the goal line by Troy Stetcher where it was bouncing in, and then the other team gets a bounce, right? I'm not saying that's happened throughout this losing streak, but it happened for the Leafs last night, and I thought it affected them. So today's a new day, a new opponent, a different opponent, and we'll see if the Lightning can have something good happen. I kind of felt this way at the start of the year when they started 1-4-2. It was kind of like they need some good juju, and I think we're kind of at that point right now where you put in the work, you connect all the dots, you do everything you're supposed to, and you don't get rewarded. Then you do it again, you don't get rewarded again. Then you do it again, you don't get rewarded again. You do it again, and you don't get rewarded again. The other team gets a lucky break and scores. I think that's what we saw last night. If that had been the first game, like they'd won 7 in a row, and then Riley scores like that in the first period, I think it would have affected them way less. Keep in mind, they haven't had a lead during the losing streak. They've been behind or tied the entire 4-game stretch.
Hard to believe. You feel for Johansson a bit.
Yeah,
he's getting an opportunity to play.
2 games where he's allowed 1 goal.
I mean, that's incredible. Who would have thought the Lightning would be going through a scoring slump right now, even with guys in and out of the lineup? They get Kucherov and point back. And I don't know. We can get into how they looked and the impact that they had. Certainly the power play continues to be something
they only
we
had
talked
one
about on
chance.
the last call.
It was so they had one chance. It was interrupted by the end of the period, which that happens.
Yeah, it happens.
And the Leafs were able to win the starting faceoff. So they had a 117 to finish the second period. The Leafs won the draw. We talked about how good they are on faceoffs. They got it down the ice. Lightning could not get set up for the rest of the second period. Start of the third period, they did get it in the offensive zone, and I think it was just as the power play ended. Point did have a dangerous chance in the slot, but Hildeby went down. Butterfly goalie takes away the bottom of the net, got his pads down, puck hit him. He had a good game. First NHL shutout for him. He earned it. He really earned it in the first period, but that was one of his key saves that he made in the third. But, one power play. We didn't really get to see them kind of get into a rhythm. But, yes, a goal there would have helped, obviously, because they were down 1-0. And then on the 6-on-5, again, we've seen a lot of the 6-on-5 from the Lightning during the losing streak because they've been down in all of these games. They scored against Pittsburgh. The goal got taken away. They had lots of chances in the game at Long Island. We had talked about that after that game. All of these shot attempts, almost like brick wall, like the invisible wall. Goalie made saves. Puck went wide. Islanders blocked shots. They did a decent job in the 6-on-5 against the Islanders on Saturday. And then last night, Radish takes a shot that finds its way all the way through, hits the post, comes back, hits Hildeby's skate, doesn't have enough juice to bounce over the goal line, and he lunges back and covers it. So they got a good bounce there. Toronto did. The Lightning didn't. Now, Tavares hit the post too in the second period. So each team hit a post. I'm not saying the Lightning had all of this bad luck and the Leafs didn't have any, but it was that close. Like if the puck is literally half an inch closer, it's off the post and in.
Yep.
But that's the way it's going right now.
A lot of questions, as you can imagine, concerns coming in right now that we will get to. And, of course, we've got some decent sound coming in as well that I want to get to. Here was Gergensons, Agnes Gergensons, who actually had a couple of decent looks.
Yes, he did. One in the third
this
period.
game. Yeah, here's what he had to say about the 4 losses.
I mean, it's tough. Losing 4 in a row is never easy. It's more about just us finding another gear and, just getting out of this rut.
Also, Coop was talking about the standings.
Honestly, I'm not a big standings watcher, to be honest, until we start getting the halfway after Christmas, January, and then you're just kind of taking a peek. But it's been a different year that, from top to bottom, there's not that mass separation. And I think, Colorado might be the only team that's kind of taken off. But other than that, it's these playoff races are going to go down to the end. Everybody says these numbers are 96 to get in. It's going to be more like 86 is going to get you in. It looks like this year.
Well, look, I may take exception with that just because. So you're right. If you think that a bunched up standing situation means fewer points are going around, so maybe it's not going to be 96. The thing that's bucking that trend is all these overtime games. So I looked at the standings this morning. I actually have not really been looking at the standings much. I knew the Lightning were in good shape, and then they hit this losing streak. So if they can get 2 points tonight, they will get to 36 points after 30 games. That is playoff pace. Of course, they were at 34 points after 5 games in this 10-game segment. They're still at 34 points. But they can get their 12 points in this 10-game segment if they win tonight and finish this 10-game segment 6-4. Just for the sake of bringing this up, talking about the Atlantic Division, not the Metro. In the Atlantic Division, some teams have hit the 30-game mark. Some teams are not at the 30-game mark yet, but they're close. Besides the Lightning, who need a win tonight to get to 36, there's only one other team of the 8 or the 7 besides the Lightning that can get to 36 or more. It's Montreal. Montreal is at 28 games played, and they have 33 points. So if they get 3 points in the next 2 games, they'll be at 36. There's not one other team that is at 36 or can even get to 36. Now, a bunch of them are at 34. So that, to me, actually, I disagree with Coop. If things stay the way that they are, we're going to see a lot of teams in the 90s. if this all stays the same. So you have a bunch of teams that are not quite at playoff pace, but fairly close. Buffalo has lost a couple. They're under Hockey 500 right now. But you can look at the standings. If a team is not at 30 games, see where they can get if they win out. Like they're 29 if they win their 30th. If they're 28 like Montreal and they win one and lose one, where are they going to be? Teams are hovering around. Usually that's the case in the first 10. Then you start to see the second 10, some teams dropping off. By the time teams reach 30 games, we're past American Thanksgiving, which we are, and you start to see more of a gap. Mm-hmm. We're not really seeing that. Now, the Lightning, had they been able to consolidate in these last 4 games and get some points, they would have had a little bit of a cushion there. They've fallen back to earth. Detroit passed them, but Detroit is 1 point more, and Detroit is at 30 games. So Detroit is not at playoff pace. Detroit is at 35 points through 30 games. They're close. So we'll see how this continues as we kind of round the turn here. You know, after 10 more games, we're basically going to be at the halfway point. But like this 4-game losing streak feels like it's been interminable, right? But the reality is, you know, if you had said to us after game 20, the Lightning are going to go 6-4 in the next 10 games, you'd take that. The problem is they won the first 5 and they've lost the next 4. So they've let some points slip through their fingers. But if they win tonight, you know, I still maintain they're going to be in pretty good shape. And by Coop's logic, if you actually get to 96, you're going to be in. We'll see. Tough game though. Second half of a back-to-back. You're struggling. Like things are just not going your way. You're not getting any bounces. You're not getting any breaks from, you know, the officials or situation room. Like all of this stuff is kind of conspiring against you. You're getting injured. You know, no Vasilevsky tonight. I'm presuming we're going to see Brandon Halverson, which is great for him. But, you know, it'll be his first NHL start of the season, his second career NHL start. He did not have, probably by his own admission, not the start that he wanted last year in Utah, where he gave up 5 goals and the Lightning lost. So, you know, this is kind of a little bit of a gut check time for the Lightning to see if they can kind of push through this. It's not going to be easy.
And the weird thing is, you know, you mentioned bounces. I mean, how about the bounce Riley got? I mean, yesterday. I mean, that's
and Cowan.
Come on.
Like it started with Cowan trying to pass to Nylander at the post, scored, skate. Now, give Riley credit. He joined the play.
He did.
But, I mean, give me a break. The puck comes right to his stick. Cowan couldn't have passed
there.
that.
I know.
Like, he couldn't have passed that better if he actually tried to pass it to Riley.
Gretzky couldn't have made a better pass.
That's how perfectly it came to his stick.
Yeah, for sure.
And then Gensel ties up his stick.
I know.
Riley tries to shoot. Johansson's set for the shot.
I know.
And it gets muffed and goes to a better scoring angle where Johansson is not set for that shot, and Riley's able to get it and tap it into an open net. So, I mean, look, I will say this, though. After that, the Leafs generated a bunch of chances, and Johansson either stopped them or like Tavares at the post. So, I mean, they could have scored more than the 1 goal, but that 1 goal was a huge goal. And we can never go back and rewrite this game. But I wonder what would have happened if the Lightning had been able to convert on one of those chances they had in the first period.
You know, I don't think,
and how this game would have looked differently.
Yeah, I don't think the teams they're playing, their goaltender has been great. I think they've been good.
Yeah.
Jari was great.
Yeah.
He was he was exceptional. There were some goals like, whoa.
The Leafs, after the first period, did defend pretty well. Yeah. Like, Hildeby was making saves, and he was like, ooh, the rebound. Like, the rebound was right there, but there was a Toronto player to sweep it away and get it away from a dangerous area. There were not a lot of second-chance opportunities for the Lightning after the first period. In fact, the Stetcher play, where Stetcher basically got it away from the goal line as it was bouncing in, was a rebound. It was a rebound for Nick Paul. The Lightning didn't get a lot of those second-chance opportunities, but they could have after the first period, had the Leafs not really taken care of business in front of their net. Like, they were pretty good to clear away dangerous rebounds before.
How good is Matthew Nyes? We talked about him, didn't we?
I loved Matthew Nyes last night.
Is it just against the Lightning?
He's a very good player. I mean, look, I think he's at a point per game. So people are like, well, why is Dave, so high on Matthew Knies? Well, yes, like he scored against the Lightning. I think he had 10 goals in 9 games in the regular season heading into last night. He didn't have a point last night, so it's 10 and 10. And he had some plays in the playoffs, too, in that one series in 2023. So, first of all, he's a talented player. Like, he can shoot, he can pass, he's smart, he knows where to go. I saw a highlight of a goal he scored. The Leafs won in Carolina a couple of games before they played the Lightning, where Knies it was a breakaway basically, but he skated down the wing. He was like hooked or something. There was a penalty. He shrugged off the guy and kept going to the net and scored. So this guy is a bull. Like, for a guy that big and strong to be able to skate like he can skate, and he is almost impossible to move. Like, he's almost old school in that way. There was a chance the Leafs had in the second period where Matthews, it was after an icing. Lightning committed an icing that was kind of an unforced icing. The Leafs won the draw in the offensive zone. Came to Matthews behind the net. He tried to wrap around. Johansson made the save. He stopped Knies on a rebound. Like, Knies got position in front and had a second chance there. I don't know if they credited a shot on that because I think Toronto was only given like 8 second period shots, which seems low to me. And Crozier was trying to defend him. Crozier was battling. Like, after Johansson made the second save, Crozier kind of pushed Knies away. But that's where he knows what his strengths are. And I mean that literally and figuratively. He is a terrific hockey player. And he's only going to get better. I mean, what is he in his like 3rd year in the NHL? It's incredible to think about how much better he can get still. Anyway, I like him a lot.
He's been good.
I thought there were other guys in the Leafs that were less impactful. I mean, Matthews had his chances as he usually does, but I was talking to the Toronto people. They're like, Matthews just hasn't been grabbing games like he has in the past. Now, having said that, Johansson made an incredible save with the shaft of his stick.
The shaft, yes.
In the third period on Matthews. So Matthews is good enough that he's going to get looks. I thought Nylander had a very quiet game. He usually kills the Lightning. Mm-hmm. Now, he set up Tavares on the shot off the post, but the way Nylander usually plays, fairly quiet. I actually thought their best line may have been their 4th line with Nick Waugh.
Yeah,
or actually, I'm sorry, Lawton. Lawton's line, like with Steven Lorentz. They were doing a lot of the dirty work for Toronto to have possession in the offensive zone, at least early in the game. So, look, Toronto is starting to defend better. We talked about that yesterday. They're starting to get points as a result. And, we'll see where they go from here. They have a brutal second half schedule. Like, they've already played a ton of home games. We didn't talk about this on yesterday's show, Greg, but I was looking at it. They finished with 19 of their final 29 on the road, starting just before the Olympic break. So you think about that. Usually your gap between home and road games might be 3 to 4 on the high end. Maybe you get to 5. When you're finishing the season with a 9-game differential, their final 29, 19 on the road, only 10 at home. And I'm sorry. Like, if you're traveling all over the place, they have to make 2 trips out west, right. 1 to Western Canada, 1 to California during that stretch. If they have to make up ground, that is going to be a heavy, heavy lift for them. What the Toronto people I was talking to, what they were saying is they had all these home games at the start of the year, and they didn't really do very well. And they were like, the Blue Jays were like swallowing up all the oxygen in Toronto. I'm like, well, isn't that good? And they were constantly getting asked questions about the Blue Jays, right? The Blue Jays this, the Blue Jays that. And I can understand that. And they were supportive of the Blue Jays, but it almost took a little bit of attention away from them. And it was almost like they weren't pushed to do as well maybe as they would have liked to. I don't know.
Interesting. That sounds
that was interesting.
That sounds like
I mean, it's a completely different world, right? Yeah, can you imagine the Lightning being like, well, we're not really focused on us because we're getting asked questions about the Rays. The Rays are in the World Series, and it's just like Rays, and that's why we're playing badly. But that's the dynamic there, and the Blue Jays were a huge, huge story. What a World Series that was. And they're right down the street too. And they were at home. The Leafs were at home. They're playing all these home games while the World Series was going on, and even before that. So anyway, that was some of the chatter from the Toronto people, which I thought was interesting.
Toronto. It's a different different animal. If people want to chime in at Bolts Radio. Is there anything else we wanted to hit on that game before we get to some questions? Anything that stood out for you? The offense, I'm not concerned. I think that comes and goes. They're defending at least. I mean, they're holding.
They were defending.
Oppositions.
Coop wasn't happy with how they probably played the final 40 minutes. They were back in their heels in the second. Johansson helped them out for sure. I thought Braden Point. I saw some people were like Braden Point. Maybe even one of the writers wrote about this. Like he had a couple of chances. He did. I think he had 4 shots. I think he wasn't quite as impactful as we've seen him. Now it's his first game back after missing 7 due to injury. So let's see. It's the game speed stuff. So let's see how he looks as he kind of gets into more of a rhythm. Look, I mean, I didn't think that he was, the Lightning weren't hurt by having him in the lineup. But I wasn't seeing quite the same burst from him that we typically see, even as he has struggled this year. Like, he would just, like, fly by guys, right? I didn't see that quite as much last night, so he may just be working his way back into the lineup. But it wasn't a bad first game for him. And the fact that he got a couple of chances is good because the Lightning need him to get going offensively, for sure. I mean, what else can we say? They had a lot of chances in the early part of the game, didn't get rewarded, and then they kind of got the air sucked out of their balloon, and they had a harder time generating. And the Leafs picked up their defensive standard, honestly.
Crozier dropped the gloves, right? There was a lot of talk about Gonçalves' hit. I didn't, partner, when I saw the replay, and you can describe it better, they showed it basically from the waist up. So you couldn't really tell if Gonçalves' leg or knee was extended to go knee on knee.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what the Maple Leafs beef was, correct?
Yes.
In terms of what
the
he
play
did.
was reviewed, but the officials didn't do a very good job of explaining what was going on. Because at first they called 5-minute major for slashing on Gonçalves. It was not a slashing major. It was a kneeing major. So they went and looked at video. It was unclear if they were looking at, well, clearly they were looking at the video for Bobby McMahon, which I finally saw a replay. He swung his stick down on Bjorkstrand's helmet or shoulder. That is just a major no-no. Like you could seriously injure someone if you're using your stick as a weapon. I understand he didn't like do a tomahawk chop, but he did it. That is verboten. Like you were going to get a match penalty if you do that. He did. So they found that replay. They looked at it. It was unclear if they were looking at that in addition to the Gonçalves play, and they just misspoke when they said slashing, or they also looked at the Gonçalves play. I didn't think that you could go back and just look at a major. Now, the high stick, yes, because it was a match penalty for high sticking. It was kind of like the Hagel play. Like, why did they go back and review the Hagel play in the Islander game? You are allowed to go back and look at a high stick to kind of determine the severity. Hit to the head, yes. Are you allowed to look at every major? I'm trying to remember. I guess usually the officials do look at a video replay for a major that's not like a fighting major. So unclear if they looked at the Gonçalves play and they were like, yes, this is a 5-minute major for kneeing, or they didn't look at it. Usually when you see that kneeing play, it's 2 guys skating in open ice, and the one guy is with the puck is about to make a move around the defender, and the defender sticks his leg out. That's usually where you see kneeing. It is far less likely when a guy's standing in the corner and there's a forechecker, in this case Gonçalves, coming in for a body check. And it almost looked like Gonçalves didn't take the right lane to check him. It wasn't that Dakota Mermis like moved at the last second and like Gonçalves stuck his leg out, right? It looked like Gonçalves was offline, and when he was offline and he made contact, it was knee on knee. Now, it was knee on knee. Did it rise to the level of a major? In the eyes of the officials, it did. But the Leafs wiped away a major power play because McMahon did this match penalty high stick, which he's going to have a hearing. It's an automatic hearing when you get assessed a match penalty. So it turned out to be a wash. We stayed 5-on-5. I have not heard that there was a hearing for Gonçalves, the Lightning play tonight. So
No.
the league was probably like, he served his major, he got thrown out of the game, done. McMahon, different story.
Yeah. So we had some little bit of fireworks last night.
Yeah, and then
But,
look, the Leafs were looking to avenge that, and that's why Dakota Joshua fought Crozier.
And I felt like Crozier was giving up a lot in that fight, but he did well to just kind
He
of
hung in there. Yeah.
He did. He hung in there. That's usually half the battle. At Bolts Radio, if you want to get involved in the conversation, you certainly can. Al on X says, do you think that the Lightning are predictable in many aspects of their game? What do you mean by predictable?
Well, that's a word that John
What does
Cooper
it
uses
mean?
in a good way. He's like,
Yeah.
we need to be predictable, like knowing, so we're all on the same page.
Right.
I don't know. Like, we've had this conversation before about like the other team, like every team scouts every other team. Every team has tendencies. You know, is Nikita Kucherov predictable? I think the strength of his skill and ability is that he's unpredictable. He can sell a lot of things and then do something that, you know, you're not ready for. So I think the issue at the most basic level, what has happened during this losing streak? The Lightning have outshot the opponent in every game. They've out-attempted the opponent in every game. At least until last night, they outchanced the opponent in every game. And after the first period, they'd certainly outchanced the Maple Leafs. That number became more level as the Leafs pushed back in the second, and then the third was probably fairly even. So there's nothing fundamentally wrong with kind of like how the Lightning are going about their business. If the other team was like, the Lightning are predictable and we're just like stopping them, we would see some of those numbers flipped in the other direction. The Lightning would be going long stretches without any activity, no shots, attempts, scoring chances, posts. So I think it's a confluence of a lot of things. Usually that's the case when you hit a skid. The other team is getting some breaks. The other team is making the key play. The other team is getting the benefit, and not last night, but we have seen this, you know, some calls that have gone their way to help them beat the Lightning in regulation at the very least. And the Lightning are just making one mistake often that is costing them dearly. But one mistake over the course of a 60-minute game, or one extra mistake over the course of a 60-minute game, is not some like condemnation on how they are playing overall. Now you have to fight through it. It becomes more of a mental challenge, and that's what I was trying to say at the start of the show. I think they have to fight through are you kidding me? We're down again? How can we not get rewarded? It's one thing if you don't kind of put in like you're paying the toll. I use that expression, like in a good way. Like the Lightning are doing the things that usually bring you success. You keep doing them and doing them and doing them and doing them. You're not getting rewarded. That can wear on you. I think that's what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And then it starts affecting your ability to keep putting in kind of the work, if you want to put it that way, to get rewarded.
I thought you were talking about the paying the toll for the road. That's never a good thing, partner.
Well,
That's
I
never a
talked
good
about
thing.
that with like
going.
Ekblad, you know, as Ekblad paid the toll for Hagel had to pay a toll, right, for knocking down Barkov. I mean, in a little different way here.
I want to get to this. Craig on X says 128 minutes and 16 seconds with no goals for. Something needs to change.
So the Lightning have not been shut out in back-to-back games since November of 2023. And in the first 27 games this year, they've not been shut out once. Now, there were some games where they were almost at zero, like at Detroit early in the year. They scored late to get the game to overtime. Against Edmonton at home, they scored late to get a goal. They ended up winning 2-1 in overtime. So what needs to change is they need to start finishing their chances. If we are seeing a change from kind of before the second period today and then after the second period started yesterday, where the Lightning got less activity, then yes, something will need to change. They're going to need to start to play like they did before. They generated chances against the Penguins. They generated chances against Toronto in the first period. They generated some chances. It was harder against the Islanders, but the Islanders have proven to be a very, very good defensive team. Let's just put it this way. They generated enough chances in both games against the Islanders to score more than they did.
Yeah.
So what needs to change? What needs to change is they need to get rewarded. That, to me, is what needs to change. Now, if they go through this game tonight, 60 minutes, and kind of looks like they're back on their heels and they're not generating much and Montreal's taking it to them, then we can come on the show tomorrow and be
listen,
yes, that does need to change.
This could be a run and gun game tonight. Who knows? Montreal gives up a lot of goals. They score some goals. The Lightning have been struggling, but this could be a game that maybe the floodgates do open a bit, partner. Maybe. I don't know. This has a very interesting game because you most likely you're going with your third-string goaltender, right, from the Lightning's perspective. Divisional game. You never know how this goes. Second game of back-to-back.
Yeah.
This could get a little crazy.
Eric Erlinson just tweeted out, looks
say?
like the Lightning recalled Sabrin. So, look, he did pretty well in the couple of games that he played with the Lightning earlier this year.
Basil on X says, what concerned me yesterday was what I perceived as a lack of focus. The effort was good. The compete was good. But they had trouble executing anything but perimeter passes. Just throwing pucks toward the net rather than shooting with purpose. I love Cooch, but how many times did he just fling blind passes to nowhere? Very frustrating to watch, and the power play opportunity they were waiting for all game was just squandered.
So, Basil, that was more true after the first period ended. I don't think you can say that in the first 15 minutes. The Lightning were playing with a purpose. They were getting pucks to the net. Gergensen's, so he did it twice, but the one time he took it in the first period, Holmberg had a chance, and Hildeby had no idea where the puck was. He just put his pad down because that's what goalies need to do when you're like, this puck is going somewhere, I'm taking away the lower part of the net, puck hit him in the pad. Charles-Edouard Destus takes a shot from the left circle in the first period. Hildeby literally is looking around, trying to find the puck, and it lands in his glove. I thought the Lightning did a lot of good things in the first period that were the opposite of what Basil had in his post. After
agree.
the first, though, they looked like a team that was less direct, honestly. Fewer shots, fewer attempts, fewer chances.
It is what it is. Let's go to FKA 322, and it says great defense and performance by Jonas, but that game was borderline unwatchable. Offense is boring, uninspired, and listless. It has no spark or punch. They need someone who can finish.
Well, again, I feel like I'm going to repeat the same answer. If you watch the first 15 minutes, you wouldn't say that was the case.
Yeah.
Eric had it in his article, so they had 15 shots. I think the 15 shots came before the goal, because they were switching the shots a whole bunch. They had 15 shots on the shot on goal board before the Riley goal. Possible they took one away and gave one to the Lightning later. But if the Lightning, in fact, had their 15 shots before Riley scored, of those 15 shots, Dan Heinold even said they probably had 8 or 9 tremendous scoring chances. They weren't able to finish. Look, the fan pointed out they need someone who can finish. They have guys who can finish. They've been a very productive offensive team for years with many of these same guys. Brandon Hagel is at 17 goals. He can finish.
Yeah.
Jake Gensel is up there too. He can finish. They have guys who can finish. Right now they're snake bitten. It happens. I don't think that there's some aha kind of solution to this. I think that what we heard from the coaches, and I think that this is true, you have to stay with it. What was it Coop said? Trust the process.
It's funny.
They are not a team that has struggled to score goals all year. If they were, then we would say, they really need somebody who has a little pop offensively that can help them score. They have guys that can score.
Aaron says, trust the process, but at the end of the day, you have to get points.
There's no argument there.
That is true.
But
we're
again,
saying is
the
usually
Lightning are coming off a 7-game winning streak, which really helped them. I mean, there are two ways to look at it. They've squandered the good work they did with a 7-game winning streak, but thank God for that 7-game winning streak now that they're in this rut.
Usually the process leads to points, and that's, I think, what we're trying to say. But
I think that was why
taken.
Coop said he was a little disappointed last night.
And Arrigo says, again, we cannot win the cup without a solid power play. What I see is a lot of rush and no patience from the players. They have to calm down. We have the talents.
So a couple of things. First of all, you have to get in the playoffs to win the Stanley Cup. And I do think that a good power play will really help. We have seen enough evidence of teams that have gone deep in the playoffs and even won a Stanley Cup with a subpar power play. We've talked about this a lot on the show. I believe a penalty kill, of the two, the penalty kill is more important in the playoffs to win a Stanley Cup. But having a good power play in the playoffs certainly helps. There's no question. I think the 2 cups the Lightning won, like in the bubble and then the next year, their power play percentage was quite good in the playoffs. And we've talked about it a lot on the show. They need to figure it out. I mean, they're at 15.7% coming into the game tonight, tied for 25th.
It's interesting, and I think they have enough credibility that you think the power play will come back and be effective. I asked the question, though, on the last call yesterday, and I said if it continues to be not only unproductive, but kills momentum and gives momentum to the other team, because that can't happen. Does this force, or at least have the organization look at this and say, we need to do something about it? And no, I'm not talking about you go out and acquire Steven Stamkos. I'm not saying that. But I think for them, this is unacceptable because there is too much talent there. And I do wonder how much of this partner is collectively Braden Point struggling with his offensive game. In other words, if he was lighting it up, does it also translate to the power play doing well? And how much of this, too, is Bjorkstrand's just off to a horrible start?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if those two players are at their average production at this point in the season, by default is the power play also impacted by their production. And I think it's unusual circumstances to have two very good offensive players, I think in Point's case, a great offensive player, to be this out of sync offensively. Sure, we can factor in that, you don't have a Stamkos on the other side for the one-timer, yes, but they dealt with that last year and was pretty good.
Yeah.
The fact that I think those two guys are struggling, not only 5-on-5, of course, but where do they make a lot of difference, too? It's on the power play.
Yep.
And how many goals do they have combined? Point and Bjorkstrand? Bjorkstrand has
5.
one, right? Bjorkstrand
has
Point
2, and I think Point has 3. Yeah.
I mean, if you were to tell me almost 30 games in that Braden Point would have 3 goals and Bjorkstrand would have 2, you would be like, what's going on? Are the Lightning in last place?
I actually looked at the last game that these teams played, which was the Super Bowl Sunday last year. Yeah. So the Lightning and Canadiens only played 3 times last year. They played 1 game in Tampa, which was the usual after Christmas game. The Canadiens won that game. Then the Lightning went to Montreal in the middle of January when they had that crazy stretch of ton of road games, and they were up, and they blew it, and they lost in the third period. Jake Evans scored late, although I thought the Lightning outplayed the Canadiens in that game. They lost 3-2. Then, remember, shortly thereafter, the Lightning had that stretch going into the Super Bowl where they had the 2 home games against Ottawa. They won both. And then they had a back-to-back 2 afternoon games at Detroit, at Montreal. They won both going into the Olympic break. I meant the 4 Nations break. So I was like, let me look at this game where the Lightning won in Montreal. They actually went up 3-0. Sorry, 2-1 in the first period. Then they made it 3-1 early in the second. And then 4-1. Gergensen scored. That was Gergensen's first goal. Make it 4-1. Canadiens made it 4-2, 4-3, empty netter. Lightning won 5-3. Braden Point scored in that game. it was his 31st goal of the year. And just seeing that, like that was a game that was played in early February. I mean, we're in close to mid-December. He has 3 goals. I know he's missed some time, but he hasn't missed, half the season. He missed 7 games. So he is really having, I mean, this is just uncharted territory for Braden Point. Even his rookie year, where he was snake bitten at the start of the year and then he got injured, but he still had a good offensive year, particularly in the last third of the season. So yes, all of that is true. The power play struggling has affected Point and Bjorkstrand. Point and Bjorkstrand struggling has affected the power play. 100% accurate. But let's not lose sight of the fact that the Lightning are still, like points percentage-wise, they're better than every other team in their division except for Montreal right now. So let me just say this about Montreal. I haven't seen them play this year, but sometimes the numbers don't tell you much. Sometimes the numbers do give you some information. I do not feel that the Montreal Canadiens can sustain what they have done this year unless they make some changes with their numbers. And what I'm seeing is, so why do I say that? So they have had a great power play. Their power play in some ways has been the biggest reason why they are where they are. Now, maybe that'll continue. And if it does, good for them. They're 4th in the NHL in the power play, 25.6%. They got Suzuki, they got Cole Caulfield. Like, they got guys who are dealing on the power play. Their penalty kill is not good. 77.5%. They're 25th in the NHL. This goes hand in hand with their defensive numbers. 29th defensively out of 32 teams, Montreal Canadiens. 3.46 goals allowed per game. They're way underwater 5-on-5.
Yeah.
Their 5-on-5 ratio is bottom third in the NHL. So this is a little bit like how we described the Lightning 2 years ago, if you recall. Like, they scored a fair amount. Their power play was great. They were giving up too many goals, and they were underwater 5-on-5. I think it's even more pronounced with the Canadiens. So how are the Canadiens at 33 points through 28 games? They actually started 10-3-2. I think there are a couple of things at play here. Number one, their power play. Okay. Number two, they've played, 28 games? 10 have gone to overtime. More than a third of their games have gone to overtime. So they are getting points, and they've done very, very well in the overtime. 2-2 in the shootout. I think they're 5-1 in overtime. So when games get to overtime, often they are cashing in with the second point. Is that sustainable? Are we going to multiply this by 3? Are they going to finish 15-3 in overtime games this year? I mean, it tends to even out a little bit. Are they going to continue to get 1 out of every 3 games to overtime if you're allowing almost 3.5 goals per game? The other part of this, which I found very interesting, so usually when you look at 6-on-5 goal ratio and 5-on-6 goal ratio, 6-on-5 goal ratio, you get a couple, and then there are a whole bunch against because you're giving up empty net goals. 5-on-6, you might give up a couple, but usually are scoring empty net goals, right? Like, if the other team pulls the goalie, the likelihood of the team scoring that has the goalie in the net is higher, right? Maybe nothing happens. But if a goal is going to be scored, it's more likely for an empty net goal to happen than a 6-on-5 goal to happen. Generally. Montreal Canadiens, 6-on-5, 4 goals scored, 4 goals allowed. So in the times they've pulled the goalie late in the game down, they've scored as many goals as they've allowed into the empty net. That's how they've gotten games to overtime. But the flip side is also true. When they have been trying to protect the lead, they've given up 4 goals when the other team has pulled the goalie because they're not good defensively. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm just looking at this team and I'm like, what are they? Like, are they gonna be bumping up at the top of the division with literally a bottom 5 defensive standard? I don't know if that's possible.
Point. Yeah, it's a good point.
How much can they rely on their power play and just getting points by getting games to overtime throughout 82 games? Right now, it's keeping them, I don't want to say afloat because they're right there. If they beat the Lightning tonight, they're going to be in position to get to playoff pace. But I'm looking at these numbers very suspiciously. Another part, too, Lane Hudson had a great year last year. He won the Calder Trophy. He had 66 points. He had 60 assists. He has had a much quieter year this year. I'll give you his numbers. But I don't know. I mean, you start 10-3-2. That's not a fluke. But I just wonder, can they sustain what they've done through the first almost 30 games?
Partner,
Hudson,
I don't know.
Well, look, I stand corrected. Hudson has 22 points in 28 games, so he's benefited from the power play.
Just because you start off the season strong, to me, that doesn't mean it's not a fluke. How many years have we seen Buffalo get off to a good start?
But Buffalo's usually about a month, right? I mean,
they get before Thanksgiving, right? And then they're done.
Montreal's been a great road team, so they're 8-3-2 on the road. They're just 7-7-1 at home. So I shouldn't have disparaged Hudson. I guess I thought that he had fewer points than what he has. So their power play guys have gotten points, in part because their power play has done so well. Caulfield, who's on an 11-game point streak, 31 points in 28 games. Suzuki, who had a 12-game point streak earlier in the year, 32 points in 28 games. Ivan Demidov, 22 points in 28 games. He plays on their power play. Hudson, 22 points in 28 games. But I'm looking at some of their numbers. Jake Evans, who's their best defensive center, is minus 15. Minus 15. He's like their Cirelli, basically. Their penalty killer, their shutdown center. We'll see. If this game goes to form for Montreal, the Lightning should be able to get scoring chances. And we'll see if they can finish on either Montembeault, who missed the last game because he was ill, or Dobesh, who's their other goalie, who's actually had better numbers this year than Montembeault. And we'll see how Halverson does if he gets the start.
I mean, that's the X factor, isn't this tonight?
Yeah.
Listen, I may be off.
Lightning should stay out of the box. That should be another key.
I don't have a great feeling about this game in terms of it being tightly checked. I think this is going to be. This has the makings of being like a 5-4, 6-5 game. And there's various factors for that. Second game of a back-to-back. The Lightning are facing an uphill battle. They're just struggling right now. Your third-string goaltender is in. Perhaps, though, this is where Kucherov and Point can explode a little bit, and it does become a little bit of run and gun. And this is where we come back and say, well, it wasn't so much about the process. It was about the result, and the Lightning hopefully get some points. I don't know. I could be wrong, and maybe it will be a 2-1 game. But it is what it is. Chris says, meh, just unlucky, not worried, go Bolts. I agree with that. I think the part that has me shaking my head is like, you just came off a 7-game winning streak, and it feels like you're wasting it by losing 4 in a row and not getting any points.
It's a pretty small sample size through the season, though, Greg. I mean, look, we're basically at 30 games. So what can we say about the Lightning through 30 games, the 30,000-foot view? What we can say is they are, after the first couple of games, a hardworking team that plays with high urgency, and they have generally defended well. The biggest problem that they have had this year through 29 games is not a lack of offense, it is the power play. I mean, the power play has struggled throughout the entire year. That's the one area of their game that has not really clicked into high gear. It's shown flashes here and there. It's helped them win a couple of games for sure. Scored late against Anaheim, got them that win, had a big performance in their win at Vegas. Yes. But if we look for trends through 30 games, I think the biggest concern for the Lightning's game overall is the power play, but it has not affected their goal scoring. I mean, they're still at over 3 goals a game on average, which is excellent. That is enough to help you get points. So you would figure that at some point they are going to kind of return to the mean. What they have to change, what they have to improve from the mean is this power play percentage. That's how I look at it.
On most occasions with that small sample size, I feel like that has to be reevaluated when you're dealing with a ton of parity too. And I
Yeah.
think that is something you have to take into consideration. I would tend to agree with you. 82 games, you're going to have some ebbs and flows. I think a 7-game win streak's a pretty healthy win streak, by the way, in any season, in any
This
schedule.
losing streak has been a week. Like, it was
Four's-
a week ago today, we were talking about the Lightning playing the Islanders with a 7-game winning streak.
4 is not horrible, but maybe you know what it is? I mean, it just feels like the Lightning haven't had many of those over the last 5,
No,
6
they
years.
haven't. They've been
I
able
think
to
that's
avoid
what it
them.
is.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And so I think maybe that's what's resonating with me is that, wait a minute, you're on a 4-game losing streak and you didn't get any points? Un-Tampa Bay-like
Yeah.
is kind of where I would go there. Let me get this quick read in because we can't go anywhere, partner, without Reef Rum. It's smooth and versatile, and it's now pouring at Benchmark International Arena. Order a tropical wave or a lightning mule and taste why fans are switching. Reef Rum is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability. Ask for Reef Rum by name. Go Bolts. Please enjoy responsibly. Okay. Let's get to some more questions because this is the place people want to come, partner, when there are issues. Local Nomad. When the Lightning got shut out back-to-back in November 23rd, the player to break the goal drought was points on the power play. That would be amazing tonight.
Yeah.
LOL.
I did not remember that.
Either did I. Preston says, how do players usually get out of a scoring slump like our guys are going through now?
You just got to put your head down and keep
Yeah.
doing, like, simplify your game. Players say that. Sometimes players, when they're really in a slump, it's like, I'm focusing on other parts of my game, so I'm not really thinking about offense. I remember when
I think
Yanni
getting
Gourde had
chances.
his long goal drought during the COVID
Yeah.
year. He was like, I just stopped worrying about it. I just started, like, focusing on playing defense.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I will say this. I think it's different maybe a little bit with a Yanni Gourde compared to a Braden Point.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So it
I
kind of
think-
depends on the player.
Yeah. Braden Point, you want to see him keep getting chances because eventually that means he's close. Not that every player doesn't want to get chances regularly, but Point is going to get more chances than Yanni Gourde. Different player on the ice more. Expected to do more. I think if a player's not getting chances, that's where you're kind of shaking your head and saying, is there something else
Right.
going on here? Do we need to reevaluate what's happening? Russo, this is good. This is a good Bolts team. However, there are some players that just aren't contributing what we are used to. Point is having a nightmare, and Bjorkstrand can't hit water if he fell out of a boat.
Well, those are
we
two
talked about it.
obvious kind of players to target because Point's goal production is just so far below what he's done throughout his career, and the same is true for Bjorkstrand. Bjorkstrand hasn't scored like Point has scored, but Bjorkstrand has scored. Even last year with the Lightning, when he came in after the deadline,
Yeah.
he was more productive offensively.
Listen, you could say the injury threw him for a loop last year, you
Yeah, it's
know,
possible.
and it was a tough injury to come back from. I do think this is a great lesson. Not every single season is the same year, and you still have to go out there and produce regardless of what your credentials are. And that's not to say Bjorkstrand doesn't want to, but he's clearly been put in some positions where he's not been as dynamic as he's used to been.
Yeah.
And I think that's been
He's
the
got to
problem.
get his shot off. He just
Yeah.
hasn't shot the puck enough. And when he shot the puck, he's missed the net. Goalie's made the save. But I just think that he hasn't. I mean, when you talk about generating chances, for him, it's getting an opportunity to get that shot off, and it just has not gone in. In
Yeah.
part because of volume. Like, he just hasn't shot the
Sure.
puck enough.
Chris says, very frustrating loss. We have basically given away all the good work done in November. Not optimistic about the chances tonight in a back-to-back with Halverson and Nets, but hopefully they can find a way to get points.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, just because it's a back-to-back doesn't mean that it's a scheduled loss. I mean, this is not as difficult a back-to-back as some other back-to-backs the Lightning have had. In fact, they've had to play in Montreal in the second half of a back-to-back a lot over the last few years, and they've done pretty well in this building. I know I mentioned the one that they lost last year, but they were up in that game, and they played pretty well. And then they won the second game, which was also the second half of a back-to-back. Afternoon, but still. We'll see how they do tonight.
Dusty the dog.
As frustrated as the fans are, I can assure you the players are more frustrated and are very motivated to end this losing streak.
Yes, they are. They're the ones playing. We're just watching. Dusty the dog. All the guys that are day-to-day, did they all make the road trip? Pardon.
So who is day-to-day at this point? Chernak is not day-to-day. I did not see McDonough. I did not see McDonough or James on the ice for the morning skate in Toronto, but that is not.
Douglas, we don't know. He was. Do we think Douglas was on the ice?
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, the fact that they called up Sabrin may be an indication that Douglas is not 100%.
It could be it.
Could be.
Yep. Paul says, any word on when Big Mac will be ready?
Well, he himself was asked that when he signed his contract extension. He's like, it's just slow going.
My neighbor Lucas, everyone can blame me. Missed all the Power Lunch episodes during the losing skid due to work. They should win tonight. I love it.
See, Steve Ersing would say there's no excuse because you're not working 24 hours a day. You can listen on demand, right? You should point that out to your
Lucas
neighbor.
is an honest man. He's an honest man, and that's what we love about him. Kyle says, at what point does Geeky get the call-up, especially with all the lack of production throughout the lineup? That is an interesting point because they do have some options.
They have some options.
The problem is, though, the guys who are really slumping are players you're not going to take out of the lineup. I'm talking about Point and Bjorkstrand. I guess you could make a case you could sit Bjorkstrand for a game, and somehow that's having him take some time off, decompress, gather yourself. I personally think guys like that just need to work through it, kind of like what we talked about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Keep shooting your way out of the slump. Eventually, Bjorkstrand, you have the credentials and the pedigree that has shown us over the course of time you will come back to being the goal scorer the Lightning thought you were. Now, if you want to get into a conversation about scratching a Gonsalves for a Geeky, or, I mean, you're not going to mess with the fourth line, are you? No. Right. I mean, so who are you going to sit? You have to be logical with it. And Kyle, I get it. Like Geeky, in a perfect world, he's in your top 9. I don't think they're there yet, and I think the two people that you would take out of the lineup are regulars, and you're just not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that doesn't satisfy the masses, but that's how I would answer that question. Andrew says, I read the Bullets have scored 11 goals below expected over this losing streak, and also heard from Steve they lead the league in goalposts this year.
The goalpost stat is not correct. I actually looked that up because I was curious. Carolina's at the most goalposts, but that kind of
how many goalposts have the Lightning
Carolina
hits?
Shoots the puck more than any other team
they
in
do.
the NHL. Attempts. I mean, it's not shots on net. Goalposts are technically missed shots. The Lightning are middle of the pack in goalposts. I think Brandon Hagel is one of the top guys in goalposts hit. I saw that. He's not number one, but he is up there. What was the other part that the fan had? There was a first part of that, wasn't there?
There might have been.
We took the question away.
They have scored 11 goals below expected over this losing streak.
Right. So that kind of goes to the scoring chance notion. Those are those advanced stats that are out there. And while I'm not sure that it's exactly that number, I mean, they're kind of doing the best they can to paint a picture. There's no question the Lightning have been snake bitten. That's how we put it, right? They're getting chances. They're not finishing. Goalies making saves. They aren't bearing down enough. Little unlucky. The reason that it's below expected is, like, if you get chances like that, it kind of follows that a certain percentage of them are going to go in.
Yeah.
Right now, fewer of those are going in. And none have gone in the last 2 games.
I hear it. That's going to wrap it up for us. We have a bunch more that we want to get into, but let's save them for tomorrow.
Yes, we're pre-taping tomorrow. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Lightning are spending the night in Montreal and heading back to the U.S. tomorrow. But Steve must have been looking at something different than I did then, because he has Tampa Bay with the 4th most post crossbars hit. I must have been looking at something else then. Lightning are spending the night in Montreal. They are flying later in the day tomorrow because it's not a long flight from Montreal basically Newark, New Jersey, and therefore we are taping in the morning.
Perfect.
10th in post hit, second in crossbars hit. Why is that an important distinction in the league? I appreciate it, Steve, but I find it curious that
there's a stat for everything, partner.
Yes, I guess there's
a stat for everything. All right,
so
we
they're
got the game
10th in
tonight.
posts. Maybe that's what I was looking at. 10th in posts, second in crossbars, fourth if you add the two together. To me, that's fourth.
Game tonight, 7 o'clock. Right. We'll
Yes, thank goodness, not 7:49 or whatever.
Man, I tell you what, might as well do our talk show.
Yeah, it was almost like Central Time Zone.
It really was. It really was. And then we'll recap it tomorrow as we tape. So get your questions in, everybody. We always appreciate that. Partner, great job as always. I will talk to you. I'll talk to you in a few hours. Good hockey talk. Thanks to Steve Ersnick and Jared Johnson. Thanks to you for listening. We always appreciate you guys. You've been listening to Power Lunch right here on Lightning Radio.